Hello and welcome back to All Access OPEX and Manufacturing. In this webinar called Revolutionizing Manufacturing, No-Code Process Automation, we will discuss how manufacturing organizations can accelerate innovation and comply with ease with no-code process automation. And I'm delighted to introduce our speaker. We've got Paul Stone, product strategist at FlowForma. Paul, it's over to you.
That's great. Thanks very much for the intro, Anna. So I'm looking forward today to talking to you about how business process automation can really make a significant difference to manufacturing operations. Talk about some of the case studies and use case scenarios where it's made a real difference to some significant companies in manufacturing. So what we'll do to kick off is to talk about how process automation is a strategic imperative. And what we've seen in a Forrester report recently is that fortune will favor the bold. And that's all really about making change, becoming resilient, and managing that change, and doing that through standardized business processes. Now, when we talk about automation in the context of manufacturing, we're often talking about automating the manufacturing process itself. But you need to keep a focus on the people in your organization, because it's the people who will enable that change to happen, enable your company to become more resilient and more competitive in a marketplace. So you look at the way your people are performing those processes and try and make them more productive, reduce the waste, and ultimately do things more predictably, so that as the environment around you changes, whether that's your competitive landscape, or whether that's the issues relating to, for example, supply chain and disruptive scenarios, what you can do is by digitizing processes, you can make the operations more predictable and ultimately control the risk of change outside your organization. So some of the challenges you may face may be that you're serving multiple locations, that you may have multiple divisions inside your organization, and trying to get people to work across departments and across divisions can be very difficult if you're relying on things like email chains and spreadsheet trackers and so on to actually manage those activities of the people inside your organization. It can also be very difficult right now to hire and retain skilled employees. In many markets in the world, there's a real challenge in terms of recruiting new people into the organization. And ultimately, also finding and maintaining your competitive edge. So you will have some understanding of your market, but how do you maintain that competitive edge inside your market by ensuring that your products are developed to meet the market needs? And also, you might be challenged by poor reporting abilities and maybe a lack of visibility in your organization of where things are at any one point in time, exactly what state are your operations in. So what we'd like to do is just launch an interactive poll at this point, where you can let us know what challenges you see in your organization right now. So Anna, it would be great if you could launch that poll. Thank you.
So the poll is on. If everyone could vote, that would be great. Excellent. So we're about to share the results now.
That's great. And it's really interesting to see that we have a clear winner with business process visibility. It's very common across all organizations, not just in manufacturing, within other industries as well, that process visibility is a real challenge for people because they're not collecting details about the process, the business processes in their organization. So without collecting that data, that vital data, it's impossible to see and display on the dashboard where things are right now at this point in time. And you know what, that was a significant thing for many of their case studies, our clients, that by enabling process visibility, they saw a really significant improvement in their productivity. So we'll certainly be talking about that in just a little while. Okay, so in many organizations, when you're talking about digital processes, it's very much a top-down scenario. What that means is that those processes are digitized by the IT department, and then simply the workers in the field are told, this is the new process, this is the way it works, please follow it. But there is an alternative way of doing that, which is using your business people to actually define those processes themselves. The business people know those processes better than anybody else, and you can enable them to actually digitize themselves, produce digital solutions that allow those processes to run and run efficiently in the organization. It's a really good way of doing things because it encourages ownership in the business of the solution to digitization, right? It encourages people who are actually carrying out those processes to digitize it the way they need it to work with their resource pool right now. And it can include the various steps, obviously, in a process that can be tracked and refined over time to make your operations run as efficiently as possible. With our FlowForma tool, processes can be digitized very rapidly. It's designed as a no-code tool, and what that means is that people can produce digital solutions very quickly and roll them out to the actual end users in the field very quickly, so that you can actually get feedback and refine those processes, ultimately making them run more efficiently. Typically, we see a return on investment of FlowForma within 6 weeks, and we support things like mobile apps and so on, so that people can use it in the field wherever they are. So wherever they are in your organization, whether they're in a head office, whether they're in the field, whether they're in one country or the next country, it doesn't matter. Those processes run across departments, across countries, and across sites. So everybody who is involved in the process can access the system wherever they need to access the system. And ultimately, by implementing digital processes, you're tracking that visibility of the processes so you know where things are at any one point in time. And so what we're going to do is jump onto some real world case studies and talk about a couple of companies who adopted FlowForma, the results that they achieved. The first one up is a company called Nipro Europe. Nipro are a large medical devices manufacturer, and they implemented FlowForma mainly to deal with changes that were simply going to be too expensive to create solutions in using traditional methods. And what do I mean by that? Well, they outsourced most of their IT, and they implemented some very significant large systems, SAP, for example, and actually implementing a solution for, let's say, a small warehouse was a very expensive thing to do, because they would have to engage with the third-party vendor, they would have to engage with their, they would have to extend what they were doing in SAP. It was a very expensive business. So they were looking for a solution that would allow them to digitize things quickly at minimal expense, and not necessarily using IT resources. They wanted to avoid IT resources because essentially they had outsourced IT. So they deployed FlowForma, and it was championed as a solution that was used entirely by the business. And they saw it really as a transformational tool, an opportunity for the business to express their requirements, to express their needs by actually producing digital solutions themselves. It was really quite revolutionary, and it allows them as well to standardize those processes across the business. So they could, for example, a person in head office in Belgium could build a solution that could be used by anybody inside the Nipro Europe business. I think they had over 90 locations, and they were able to do this very quickly. And ultimately, that digital process would also drive communications between all the parties involved, including people who are outside of the business, external suppliers and clients who could be involved in those processes. So the system was able to not just track that process, but also drive it forward and communicate with all the necessary parties to keep the process moving, and ultimately that enabled them to become more productive. Another key example is a drinks manufacturing company. So this is a company who is a global leader of in a production of alcoholic beverages, exporting to over 130 markets worldwide. They had a lot of unstructured processes in place. And one that I'd particularly like to talk about is their product development process. So this particular company had to push 300 products through an innovation process every single year in order to meet their growth targets. So what do I mean by that? Well, they'd have 300 ideas and concepts that they would need to evaluate and pass through a stage gate process to ultimately get a small percentage of those products into production and launched as products in the marketplace. Once the product was launched, they could generate sales, and the sales fueled the growth. So it was a key process for this company, and it involved multiple different approval steps as products were ideated, in other words, designed and spec'd. They were then assessed for feasibility. If they were judged as being feasible, they were placed into a launch plan and launched onto the market. So each one of these three stages were very complex, but the solution was built very quickly and ultimately reduced the product launch cycle down from 6 months to 6 to 8 weeks. This had a massive positive impact on the business because they were able to launch products faster, and those products were well tested, well market tested, and so on, so that when they launched, they achieved their sales targets, and that fueled growth in their operations, their business. They saw FlowForma as a very cost-effective solution because previously they were looking at expensive, large package solutions that didn't quite meet all of their requirements. And FlowForma not only was a much cheaper solution, it was able to be used and modified by the business people and to achieve their goals, and ultimately was a much cheaper solution in terms of the operating costs of FlowForma. So let's talk a little bit about FlowForma, the product and the company. So we're a company based in Dublin and Ireland with offices in the US and also the UK. And we're an award-winning business process automation provider with over 200,000 users across 20 countries around the globe. And we're dedicated to empowering business people to work smarter and faster so that you can actually, as a business person, create your own digital solution and deploy that solution to your co-workers and to people inside and outside your organization so that you can accelerate business processes operating in your business. And we're well recognized, including recognition from Forrester, but also we're a Microsoft Gold partner and have very high scores on platforms like G2 and so on. But I'll let everybody in the audience here go and look at our website and look at those reviews to see how impressive our product is. And I'll quickly move on to showing you a screenshot of our product. Now, unfortunately, we don't have time on this call today, the webinar today, sorry, to show you a full demonstration. But from these two simple screenshots, you're going to get a good idea of how the system works. If we first look at the screenshot on the right-hand side, you're seeing an employee onboarding process in action. So what we have here is a series of process steps. These are business process steps along the top of the screen. And that's showing you currently where you are in the process. So right now I'm at the very start of my starter checklist. And as the process progresses, I will move through those remaining steps. Now, each of those steps is a task that's executed by a human being. So a person is carrying out a task, and as they carry out the task, they record details in the bottom part of the screen there about the task that they are carrying out. So in this case, they're capturing some details about the employee. As you move through different steps, different data is captured. Also, each step is assigned to a resource, a specific person. And as you move through the steps, a full audit trail is retained as to how that process is progressing and what information was captured on each step, so that you have full visibility of the information that at each step in the process. Now, every process in FlowForma has a similar kind of user interface. So here we're talking about a client onboarding process, but an incident management process or a change request has a similar kind of view where we have that simple kind of view, serial view of the process, but the end user knows exactly where they are at the moment. They can see what happened in the past and know what's going to happen in the future. Now, behind that simple user interface is a big complex workflow engine. And we can show you that, I guess, in a demonstration if you care to go via our website for apply for a trial and so on. We can contact us for more information and we'll show you how that works. All the information that's captured in every single process is stored centrally and it's available for viewing in a dashboard. You have a simple dashboard shown on the left-hand side there. We can also show you more complex examples of reporting and dashboards, but please contact us and we'll give you the full demo. Now, if we look at some of the processes that are digitized by our users, there's really a wide range of processes. FlowForma is a generic system that's designed to digitize any business process. So no matter what you use, so what processes or process challenges you have in your business right now, you can build a solution using a no-code tool, FlowForma. And these are just some examples of the processes that our clients have built. Incident management is an extremely popular process among our client base. We also have people building solutions for supply chain management, for fleet maintenance, asset management, innovation management, we discussed earlier on. Stock management is a very popular one in manufacturing background. So one of our clients, like Nipro there, they actually built a basic stock management system for a small warehouse, when the alternative would have been to deploy an SAP warehousing module at great expense. So you can often build solutions in FlowForma that fill gaps in your current applications, or else replace the need to buy a big complex application that is overkill for the problem at hand. Use FlowForma to build a small one and deploy it really quickly and start getting return on investment immediately. In terms of timelines for process automation, the timeline is actually relatively short. If you compare this to even a package-based implementation, where you're implementing a solution like SAP, for example, the timelines for building a FlowForma solution are very impressive. We're talking a case of like 6 to 8 weeks to actually put a digital business process into production in your environment. And as soon as you put it into production, you can start getting adoption, seeing the return on investment. Why? Because FlowForma tracks everything and can actually show you how quickly that process is being carried out. There's some stats at the bottom that show you some of the savings that have been made by our client base. But I think at this point in time, I just watching the clock that we may be time for some Q&A. So Anna, if you could maybe give me some questions, that would be great. Thank you.
We have a number of questions for you, Paul. Sure. So first of all, once a process is automated, who is usually in charge of maintaining it?
That's a great question. So typically the person who built this originally would be the first port of call. So if imagine that it's a system that's designed for business process people to actually build, business people to build out that business process. The business person has all the knowledge of that process. So typically they would be the first port of call within the business should any issues arise, right? So typically the business person is the person who maintains it, okay? Now, we have various deployment models which we can talk to you more about in detail on the call, so that we have some clients who simply pass it out to business people to actually be onboarded and be trained up in a 2-day training cycle to actually start building their own solutions. We have other clients where they actually start building things in IT and gently get those users up to speed, and then let the business people take on the maintenance, for example, of business processes. So we've got various deployment models. Every client is a little bit different. We're very happy to advise you on the best approach for your particular scenario.
Right. Another question from Ajit. Is it possible to use the product in legacy mechanical machine manufacturing environment?
Well, the answer is that the process is designed, I guess, for human beings to carry out tasks, right? So it's really a human-facing system. But while you saw the screenshot earlier on, that was like a form that's being filled in by people carrying out steps in a process. The system also has a back end that integrates into other things. So you can integrate into machine control systems, for example, that support an API. You can also integrate into things like your accounting system, like SAP or ERP system or whatever. So the answer there, I think, is that the system is focused on human beings, executing tasks to achieve a business goal. And then in the background, it integrates into other systems. So a machine control system would be an example of one of those systems that it integrates with. Okay. So I think that hopefully that answers the question.
Right. Another question for you, Paul. Do you have any tips which can help us to prioritize which processes to automate?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're digitizing, FlowForma is all about digitizing at scale, right? It's very easy to digitize a solution in FlowForma. So don't just do it once, do it many times. But we often get that question, well, where should you start? And I think the simple answer is pick a process that has a wide impact, that involves many different people would be using the process, and digitize that one first, so that basically you're getting exposure within the business to FlowForma, and then use that to generate interest in the business and drive momentum, so that you can basically roll it out to a wider range of processes. The other thing I'd say very quickly is that sometimes our clients come along to us with very complex processes that they want to digitize. And what we say to them is that, yes, you can do that, but that will take you longer. And it may be better to actually digitize something simpler. You can start to build up that momentum within the business, that momentum for change, right? So what we say to you is that you can start off with that big complex process, but you know what? Maybe the better approach is to do something simpler that has a broader audience, and start getting the ROI there first, and then move on to the more complex process.
Right. Another question here. Could I enable my suppliers and customers to input the processes digitized with the FlowForma tool?
Yeah, absolutely. So we support external interactions. So if you want to kick off a process and then involve your supplier in that process, carrying out, let's say, the second step in the process, you can assign those process steps to external entities, to people outside of your organization. So you can involve suppliers, you can also involve clients, or any external partner, and have them complete certain steps within the process that you define. So in other words, you can tightly control it so that the supplier, let's say, maybe fills in a form on step number 2, but then doesn't have any visibility at all of the rest of the process. Okay, but yeah, you can certainly involve external parties. In fact, it's one of our unique selling points that we allow you to actually we allow those steps to be completed by external people, and that's fully tracked in the audit trail.
Right, excellent, Paul. Before we finish this webinar, is there anything you would like to say to our viewers?
The one thing I'd say is don't be afraid and get started. So what does that mean? Well, FlowForma, when you implement it, it's all about basically placing change in your business, doing things differently, doing things more productively. And with FlowForma, we try and make it as easy as possible. We have a very short kind of onboarding program where you can quickly become familiar with the system and quickly start making change. And you know what, as well, it's very easy to deploy FlowForma and then change those processes. So if you deploy a process, don't focus on getting it perfect. Get a draft out there, get people interacting with it, accept their feedback, and then change it to make sure that they're happy. It really is very easy to get started and very easy to get the ball rolling. And that's really what we say more than anything else is try it out, and contact our website to where we can give you a demonstration, etc., and show you how easy it is to get started.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Paul. And I would like to remind our viewers that the next session is starting now. So to join it, please go back to the lobby page. Thanks.
Thank you.